Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today for our presentation about joyful read alouds. I'm really glad to see so many people were excited about this and are able to join us. I know some people had asked for us weren't able to join us right now and would like to have a recording. So this meeting is being recorded, and a link will be sent to everybody who registered so that you can listen later. And the slides today will also be provided. So don't think you have to write everything down or anything like that, because Lisa will be following up with you after the presentation and we'll be able to send that over to you. Okay, my name is Susan Dibble, and it's my pleasure to serve as the executive director here at Page Ahead. And I am joined today by some wonderful folks who are going to be presenting today. So first, to my left is Lisa Cenaceros. Lisa is our book program manager, if you have not met her yet. She has been with us now for a little over a year and is going to be monitoring kind of the ins and outs. So she's our technical person today as we go through. So if you have questions or are putting things in the chat, Lisa is the one who's going to be watching for that. Our next presenter, our first presenter actually in order, so is Patty Farrell. And Patty, you want to wave, Patty? Where's Patty? There she is. Okay, good. Patty retired after 27 years as a children's librarian for King County Libraries. And lucky for us, has been promoting literacy with Page Ahead for the past 4 years as a Storytime volunteer and member of our program committee. Thank you, Patty. Patty is currently providing Page Ahead story times at Rising Star Elementary School in South Beacon Hill. And then our next presenter is going to be Linda Gaynor. And Linda is a 7-year Storytime volunteer. Are you guys sensing a theme? She began working with Head Start classes at Broadview Thompson up here in North Seattle, and then followed a favorite teacher to Olympic Hills Elementary. She transitioned to reading the books via Zoom, like what we're doing right here, while classes have been virtual. So we're going to hear a little bit about that. And Linda uses all of her book reading skills to share story times with her granddaughter, who is 4. So thank you, Linda, for joining us. And then Charlotte John has been a Storytime volunteer. Hello, Charlotte.
Hi.
With both the Tukwila and Highline school districts for 3 years. And last summer started assisting us with our Book Oasis project as a restock volunteer. Charlotte's extensive knowledge, and you guys are going to really get the benefit of this today, of children's books and reading to children has also benefited her when she reads with her 2-year-old grandson. So lots of experience in the room. And so I'm really, again, really grateful that everyone here was excited to be a part of this joyful read aloud conversation. Joyful reading is something that we think a lot about here at Page Ahead. Our vision is for all children to grow to lead literate and successful lives. So if you think about it, to do that, we need to get kids excited about reading, right? And so that's why all the programs that we offer are built to drive reading excitement and motivation. Because really, if a child is reading avidly, they are successful in almost any enterprise that they undertake. So, any subject, if it's science or social studies or any of these other things, if they're reading well, they will, they do well in school essentially, and they do well in life. So we're really trying to get kids to read widely and to read well. And so all of our programs really are about how to generate that reading excitement and enthusiasm that'll carry them through their life as a reader. So for us, if you think about it, so our largest program is called Book Up Summer. And in that program, it's really about making sure that kids have books at home to read. So we're really tackling the equity issue around low-income kids not having books in their home and not being able to literally have fingertip access to books and reading. And so with that program, kids get to pick 12 books at a special book fair at their school at the end of the year. And then they take them home and read them. And then the next year they get to do it again. The next year they get to do it again. And so by the time they're they come to the end of the program, they have 36 books in their home library that reflect what they like and what their interests are, whether that's Pokemon or whether that's space or anything else, right? So it's really, again, tackling that piece about what motivates kids to read, what motivates any of us to read. We want to read what we want to read, right? So, and then our other two programs are really geared. So the Book Up Summer is really geared for kids that are in elementary age. And then our other two programs are before they ever start school. So Story Leaders and Story Times. I mentioned that three of our speakers here have lots of experience with story times. That those programs are really for kids who are have not yet started school, and they really address some pre-literacy skills. They're still really supportive of kids getting excited about reading, and there's some really great science too that supports some of the things that we work on with kids, and Patty's going to talk about that. But right now, Story Leaders is serving about how many kids, Lisa? Sorry.
Just around 1,000.
Around 1,000 students right now in Washington. And with Story Leaders, that one is for kids who are attending like a Head Start or maybe an ECAP preschool class. They their teachers are trained in something called dialogic reading that Patty's going to talk about. And the kids actually get 8 books over the course of the school year that they get read to them, and then they become a little bit familiar with, and they get to take those books home. So it's a really great way to connect the home and school environment. And it's a really great way to build vocabulary skills. And then Story Times is really about reading enthusiasm. We recruit and train and place volunteers in early learning classrooms. So usually they're pre-K and kindergarten. And then over the course of the school year, their special volunteer comes to class and reads with the students out of some of the different book kits that Page Ahead offers here. Those kits cover things like pirates or winter. Winter's popular right now. And the kids really get a chance it's a great opportunity to see an adult who is not supposed to be there in their classroom, who's sharing their love of reading and their enthusiasm about it. And they get to sing songs and do crafts and read books together. So it's really a wonderful way to encourage kids to read. So that's a little bit about Page Ahead and the different programs we do that help promote reading. We came up with this idea that a lot of the stuff that we use in classrooms and with the kids that Page Ahead serves could also be used with anyone's kids, especially in this time where we're a little bit having to be distant again because of COVID. So I am excited about our panel today, who's going to introduce some techniques and then some books, and we're going to have a great conversation. I do just want to go over a few rules of the road. So if you wouldn't mind, if you have a question, we're going to be like in school and you can raise your hand. And how you do that is down here at the bottom of your screen. You're going to see a little thing that says reactions. And you can go ahead and test it if you want to. If you click on reactions, you can see where it says raise hand. So who's raising their hand? Everybody raise your hand or put in a reaction. Oh, I see so many things. Oh, it's very good. Excellent. Okay, everybody knows how to do this. So you can just raise your hand and then Lisa will interrupt she'll bring in at the right time and you can unmute yourself and ask whatever question you want. And that's really all if you want to put stuff in the chat too, Lisa's going to be monitoring that as well. But I'm hoping to have a lively dialogue today. So feel free to just raise your hand and then jump in. Okay. All right. Well, then I am going to hand it over to Patty and she's going to get us started. Thanks, Patty.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you, Susan. So I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about dialogic reading and the programs that we use dialogic reading in with Page Ahead. So dialogic reading in its simplest terms is a way to have a conversation with your child about books that you're reading together. Children learn best when they're actively involved. So by having a fun conversation while reading together, you boost your child's interest in and engagement with the shared reading process, and you increase their early literacy skills, which will help prepare them to be ready to read when they start reading. So it's a big win-win. How, you ask? Well, reading experts have your back. A couple of acronyms will help guide your reading adventures. PEER, P-E-E-R, is a strategy that can help frame the shared reading experience you have with your child. Each letter stands for a reminder of how to converse with your child when reading a story together. So I'm going to use the book Please, Mr. Panda by Steve Antony to demonstrate the PEER process. And all of the books that I'm going to be showing you during my demonstrations are books that we use in our Story Leaders program. So P, prompt. Prompt or ask a question. So what can you tell me about this animal?
Say the animal's black and white.
The animal is black and white. That's right. Evaluate the answer in a non-judgmental way. That's right, the animal is black and white. Expand on the answer, the E, the second E. Pandas are black and white, and this animal is a panda. Do you remember when we saw a panda at the zoo together? And then finally, the R, the last R in here, there is a panda in this story. Let's find out what happens in this book. So there are several types of questions that we use in the prompt phase. So the P, E-E-R, P, in the prompt phase. And we can remember this as crowd, C-R-O-W-D. Completion, recall, open-ended, W-H, and distancing. Completion. So in completion, you ask your child to say or sing out loud a repeated word or phrase in a book that you're reading together. This creates anticipation and it helps your child gain spoken language skills. Pete the Cat books are great for repetitive phrases. So in Pete the Cat, you really can't stop yourself from singing or singing the phrases in this book. I dare ya. So after the first time they hear, I love my white shoes, I love my white shoes, I love my white shoes, your kid will be singing it along with you in this story. So that's completion. Recall, R, is a tool that you can use to help your child discuss the sequence of events and characters in a story that you read together. And this is a really powerful tool. It's a little bit more advanced, but it's a really powerful tool that will help them be successful readers all the way up through college, really. And it helps your child learn about the different parts in the story. So in Pete the Cat, you could later in the book, do you remember at the beginning of the book, what color did Pete's shoes turn the first time? And your child may or may not remember that, and that's okay. They'll be thinking about it, and they might say, I think it turned blue. And then you guys can go back and realize, oh no, Pete stepped into a large pile of strawberries. They turned his shoes red. That's what happened. So that's recall. And then open-ended questions. Open-ended questions basically don't have a yes or a no answer, and they're great to use when asking questions about illustrations or events in the story. So this is a great illustration in this book. You could just ask, what do you see in this picture? What do you think is happening in this picture? And your child might use words like cat and car and guitar and red, and say that the cat is sitting on a car and there's a guitar in the car and the car is red. And those are all great vocabulary words, and they might give you an idea about what Pete's emotions are. So lots of conversation could happen about that. WH questions are your reporter questions. who, what, when, where, how, why. And questions like this are a simple way to engage and enhance shared reading. Point to a picture or word in the book you're reading together and ask your child to name the object or discuss it with you. This is an awesome way to build vocabulary. And we do know that vocabulary in picture books and shared reading will enhance your child's vocabulary quite a lot. Spoken language uses very little unique vocabulary, and picture books enhance vocabulary quite a bit. So, for example, I could look at this picture of a farm and say, what is this vehicle right here? You know what the name of that vehicle is? That's right. It's a tractor. It's a red tractor. And tractor is a word that you just don't use in your daily life unless you live on a farm. So that is a great way to introduce new words. The next type of question that we use is distancing. And that relates the book that you're reading to events in your life. So if you're reading a book about Pete the cat and you have a pet cat, you can talk about how Pete is the same or different from your cat. For example, my cat, who just walked past me, I don't know if you saw that, does not wear shoes. My cat does not wear shoes. Maybe your cat does wear shoes and is similar to Pete in that respect. My cat is not black. My cat is a tabby. So lots of ways you can talk about how your life relates to this book. And that's a really powerful tool to engage children in the reading process, the shared reading process. Then, as I mentioned before, you can use the peer sequence to evaluate the answer you got, expand on that answer, and perhaps with a complete sentence. So if the answer was a fragment or something, you can complete the sentence and then add details and repeat the answer. Does anyone have any questions about the peer or the crowd techniques that I was talking about? And I will rely on Lisa. Okay, that's cool. It's really a fun and a great way to enhance the reading process between you and your kids. And it's also a really powerful way to prepare them to begin reading later on. So two programs that we use use this shared reading technique in at Page Ahead are the Story Leaders program, which Susan was talking a little bit about earlier. What we do is we provide training on how to use shared reading techniques to preschool educators. And then each classroom receives 8 books, 8 titles that are mostly in Spanish and English, and then guides that Page Ahead has created for them to use over a series of weeks with each title, using all those different crowd types of questions, and really allowing for an in-depth conversation about each title with the children that they have in their classrooms. And then at the end of each quarter, actually, children get to take the books that they shared home with them. There's a new set of questions that we put on a sticker that parents can use to keep going with the shared reading at home. So the children will bring a book home all ready to talk about it. And this gives the parents a few prompts for sharing the book with them as well, if they're not quite as comfortable as the teacher got to be during the shared reading process. And they're in Spanish and in English. Why do you think the mouse has his finger over his mouth in this picture? What do you think he's doing? So that's just one simple question. And then there are a lot of other questions that go along with it. So, oh, and then one of the Lola love stories, that was, sorry, The Little Mouse, the Red Ripe Strawberry, and the Big Hungry Bear by Dawn and Audrey Wood. I always like to identify the books that I'm talking about. in Lola Loves Stories by Anna McQuinn, another book we use in the Story Leaders program. And we try to keep the parent questions really fun and engaging, and recognizing that they actually know their child really well and can do a lot of those distancing questions because they know all of the experience that their child has had. But a very simple question that we put on that one is, Tuesday night, Lola's mommy reads a story about fierce tigers. The next day, Lola chases her friend Orla all over the jungle. Can you make a fierce face like Lola? So fun. That's the basis of what we want to have here at in our programs. So that's our Story Leader program. And then our Story Time program, which we talked about a little bit already. In preschool and kindergarten classrooms, the volunteers trained in shared reading and in presenting story times take story time kits provided by Page Ahead. So one that I use today, this is a story time kit, is Sharing. And I'm just going to show you a little bit about what Susan was talking about. Each kit has 4 or 5 books in it. I read Should I Share My Ice Cream by Mo Willems today, and a series of questions, dialogic reading questions that I could use with the classroom. And there are rhymes and a craft, and sometimes even a flannel board. And so it's all very handy and wonderfully available to Storytime volunteers, created by Page Ahead, which is awesome. So we use dialogic reading in our story times so kids can get used to having a conversation about books with someone, with their teacher or with us, and so that teachers can see how having a shared conversation around books works in a group setting, because it's a little daunting at first. It's a little chaotic and a little crazy, but it's also really fun. Remember, dialogic reading works. Children who are exposed to shared reading at home or in school have a better oral language skill, larger vocabulary, and have tools and the desire to succeed when they start learning to read. Don't feel obliged to use peer and crowd techniques every time you read to your child on every page of every book. Use it when it fits in, when your child is into the story, and you'll be surprised how second nature it becomes to engage your child in a fun conversation about books that you're reading together. Reading together is super fun, and this is just a way to enhance the experience. Any other questions or any questions?
I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay, no worries.
popping up.
Thanks for being here, everyone. I'm going to turn the screen over to Linda now, and she is going to talk about her experiences with story times.
Well, I want to just do first a really big shout out to Page Ahead, because what you just saw has really, the educational information, everything that has been presented to you about how peer works is there are things that I did not know until I went through the training session, and things that I hadn't thought of when years ago I read to my kids. And so it really, I think, enhanced my skills as a reader to read with kids, to have books that were selected that fit a theme, to have art projects that the kids could do after I read to them. There's another thing that Page Ahead does too, where they provide prompts. So there are musical instruments I could take with me to get kids interested to begin with, toyed stuffed animals that I could say, I have a friend with me today, and we're going to read this book together. Just things that I had never really thought of. So I think the program is great. And one of the things that Patty mentioned about having fun, it is fun for me It is fun for the kids. And I have to admit, I was apprehensive the first time. And now that I've done this for so long, I just think it's great fun. So it wasn't quite so fun though last year, because last year was the year that all the learning had to be done, distance learning, and it had to be done on Zoom. And we weren't allowed into the classroom. And so I think Page Ahead did another really great thing. They punted, and they figured out that they would have readers come in, readers like me, storytime readers come in, and they would tape them reading a story, and then they could share those as a library for all of the teachers. That was a great program. And I thought, okay, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do that. It's not quite the same thing, but education wasn't the same last year. So I thought, I'm going to do that. Well, then this favorite teacher of mine that I've been with for a number of years sent me an email, and she said, could you read to the kids as part of their online education program this year? Could you do it like you've done in the past or something similar? And I knew I couldn't do it like I'd done it in the past. And I didn't know how I could do something similar that would let me do some of the things I like the interaction with the students and asking them the questions and getting them involved. I really wasn't sure about that. So I had great encouragement from Page Ahead staff to go ahead and try. And what I came up with was to take the books that I had read in the past that I liked, picked out the ones that were the most colorful, and create a PowerPoint presentation with them. And I talked to Stacy Lane and said, what do you think? And she said, well, go ahead, give it a try. So I took the books and I engaged my husband as my technical support. And I had him photograph each of the pages of the book. We had to do a little adjustment sometimes. This is the one that we started with. It's okay to be different. I have loved this book every year because it's a good starting book for pre-K kids. It's colorful. It's got fun things to look at. It's got a good opportunity. Here, it's okay to be missing a tooth or two or three. Are any of you missing a tooth? And the kids, when they were allowed not to be muted, would call out how many teeth they were missing, or when they were muted, they would hold up however many fingers. And when I started doing this, I thought, this is working. They are engaged, they're following along, they're talking about what's going on. I can ask them questions. What kind of help do you think that this person is getting? Are dogs helpful for doing that? The only problem I had is that the teacher said, you've got 15 minutes and you've got to get through the whole thing in 15 minutes. And look down here at the bottom, you can see some of the prompts that are some of the books that Page Ahead had put on there so that I've got a little clue that I'm going to ask that question. But in the kit, again, as you saw, there's a list of questions for me to review beforehand and to remind me of what questions I might want to ask and what kinds of things I might want to say to prompt that kind of activity. So this was the first book that we started with. And the other thing that I have learned that Page Ahead again taught me is to get the kids centered first, particularly in a year where they are on Zoom calls and they may have been just having lunch before they get to me, and then they're all called together by the teacher to come in. And so I used one of the rituals that I did with the kids that I learned through Page Ahead, where we go through a little ritual to get us ready to read. And it's basically having the kids put their hands in the air, touch the ground, put your finger on your nose, shake your head all around. You put hands on your shoulders, elbows on your knees, put your chin in your hand and say, read me a story, please. Well, by the time you do this with the kids 3 or 4 times, they are way ahead of me. I don't have to prompt them. They've got it. They're ready to go and they are ready to interact. And the teacher and I worked out a process that every weekend I'd complete one of the books, send it off to her on Sunday for Tuesday reading. And we worked out a way for me to prompt her so that she could turn the pages, because she was controlling the Zoom call and she had the PowerPoint. And so I could say whatever had happened here. Well, the hungry bear is wandering through the forest and he's looking for berries. Do you think he'll find any on the next page? Sure. She turned the page for me. So it was a really symbiotic process that I had with the teacher. We were both, committed to being able to do this whole program together. And what I found fascinating is how attentive. I didn't expect the kids to be so attentive to a Zoom call as they were. I didn't expect them to share as readily. Sometimes they would even bring their stuffed animals to show that they had a stuffed animal that might fit or might not fit with what they were doing. They would call out each other on how they were managing their Zoom call. I was like, okay, Ezekiel, you're upside down, or Ramisa, you don't have your sound on. So they were so clever about it, and it just turned out to be so much fun. And I found that kids love to do the hokey pokey, whether or not you are doing hokey pokey in the classroom and they're standing up, or you tell them after you've read the story to them, stand up and let's do the hokey pokey. They still will do it. And so there's a ritual that I had to get them started. And then there's a ritual after they've been listening and talking and reading for 15 minutes that they can kind of work out all of the wiggles that they have. I loved it, actually. And they were just as funny and sharing as they were. I do miss having more time with them, but it was well worth it. Now, at one point, I had set up a screen behind me, or taken a screenshot, so that when I came on with the kids, my background was colorful balloons. So I only had a problem once when I tried to do a serious call with someone and I still had the balloons up, but it was great for the kids. But I ended up having a little technical difficulty with my computer one day. And when the teacher called everybody together and I was all set to go and my background was up, I looked at the screen and the kids all had, not all of them, but about half of them had my background. And I was really bemused by the fact, what have I done that I've got all this background? Well, the kids just decided that they would take my background. They'd gotten tech savvy by this point, and they put them up for them. And they thought that was very fun. I also noticed that sometimes other children that were at home would show up in the background of the reading program, and they would hang out for a while and go through the reading program as well. So it turned out to be a really great year. But what I also learned too is that when I started sharing these books with my granddaughter, because I couldn't be with her due to COVID, that it didn't really require a PowerPoint to do it. I could use the techniques that I had learned. I could share the front page of the book, and I could ask the questions. What do you think it's about? And what color is this? And what's your favorite color? That really got her talking more to me as well, and being more of a participant in the whole reading process rather than me reading to her. She was actually a part of the reading. So it turned out to be a great opportunity for me. It was great to be able to do it with the kids. It was fun to see what they did with it. And it was great for me to be able to share reading and the techniques I've learned through Page Ahead and their great materials with my granddaughter. So I encourage everybody to learn and use those. It's really easy to do once you figure out how to just do very simple things to get someone engaged in reading and engaged with what you're doing. And at this point, I'd be happy to ask any questions about distance reading to grandchildren or anyone else, if anybody has a question.
Hi, I had a question about reading to your granddaughter. Did you both have a copy of the book, or did you just have a copy and shared it over the screen with her?
I kind of did both. Since I had the PowerPoint, I would, if I had a book that I had a PowerPoint with, I would send it to my daughter and she would walk through it with me. But there were some books that I wanted to share that were outside of Page Ahead, some that my daughter had particularly asked me to do. And at that point, I used the books that I had. And like Patty demonstrated earlier, I would hold up the book and the individual pages, and then I would point out the things like, what do you see here? And what is this animal down at the bottom? And the great example she gave, like, what do you see with this animal on the cover? What does this look like? And I found that it was actually really easy to get a response. It was really with my granddaughter, who was 3 at the time, that we started. She was engaged in it to be able to offer up what she saw, even if it was simple. So you can do it, I think, both ways. For a large group of kids, because these kids varied in number. Sometimes it would be 7, and sometimes it would be 14. And so that way I could both see all of the kids as we're being read to. And I just kind of felt like with the PowerPoint, it gave me an ability to focus better with that number of kids. I may or not have been correct, but it just felt more comfortable to be able to do that. And particularly because the teacher was so engaged in it as well.
Okay, I think that's it for the questions for you, Linda. So I think now we can have Charlotte. Why don't you share some of the book?
I was saying when I was muted and didn't realize that I was muted, I was saying how much I enjoy that book that Linda chose, because it's okay to be different. And I'm going to talk with you a little bit about books about diversity. So I was asked to share some recommendations about diverse books. And when I do this, I usually like to start with a question. And my question to all of you is, what is the one thing that all of us have in common, regardless of our background? What's the one thing we have in common? We love reading. That's true. That's a good answer. What I'm thinking of is that we all used to be kids. So all of us were kids at one time. And the way that we as kids found out how wonderful we are, how valuable we are, was from our families, from the people who cared for us, and from our environment. And we heard stories. We heard lots and lots of stories, and some of those stories were from books. So the first thing I want to do is share with you, here's an informational chart. Just put this in your head. This is from 2018, and I know that we've done better. I saw some statistics that from 2020, and I think we're up to about almost 30% of the books that are published for children now reflect children of color. So that's just something for you to keep in mind. And now I'm going to share with you the recommendations that I have. Some of them are very old books, and some of them are pretty new ones. So the first thing that I do when I am looking for books is I look for books that support children feeling good about themselves. That's why I like that one about that Linda shared. So the book that I want to share with you first is a board book. And this is called Pretty Brown Face. And it's by Andrea and Brian Pinkney. And it's a pretty old book. And you can share this book with any children. Any children can enjoy this book. So it says Pretty Brown Face. And if you're reading this to toddlers or preschoolers, you can say, look at this boy's pretty brown face. You have a pretty face too. And what are they looking at? They're looking at his hair. Let's see your hair. What's your hair like? So they're pointing to his hair, curly and soft. Look at his hair. And then look at his nose. He's pointing to his nose. He's pointing to his dad's nose. You can do that too. You can point to your nose. See how wonderful, proud nose you have. And then in the end of the book, there's a mirror. So kids can take a look at themselves. Just remarkable how wonderful they are. So this is a board book supporting kids feeling good about who they are. A newer book, which again, shout out to Page Ahead. This book is part of one of the kits that Patty was talking about. This is part of the kit for, I think it's called Being You. So I want to share with you the cover of this book. Look at the multicultural families, look at the variety of families that are pictured on this book. And it's all about being happy to be in your skin. So two of my favorite things about this book are 2 words to share with kids. With Patty talked about how you increase kids' vocabularies. So in this book, they talk about splendid skin. Your skin is splendid, splendid skin for me and splendid skin for you. Splendid. Great word to say to kids. You are splendid. And then again, here's a great picture of exploring your skin. The other favorite word I have in this book is clever. And I think I heard Linda use that word, clever. And it says to kids, your skin is clever because your skin grows just like you do. How clever of your skin. And you're not just clever, even your skin is clever. How wonderful. You're a clever person and your skin's clever too. Wow. So those are 2 books supporting kids feeling good about themselves. The next thing that I look for when I'm looking for books are books that encourage empathy. So first, we are supporting kids to feel good about who they are. They have an honest sense of who they are and they feel secure. So that gives them the opportunity to open up to learning about other people. So they are going to be open to finding out how they are the same or different from other people. And this is a classic that you may be familiar with. This is The Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats. And especially this year, children in Puget Sound area can relate to this boy's story very well. So this is Peter on the cover. And one morning, Peter wakes up like they did here in Seattle, and snow had fallen during the night and it covered everything as far as he could see. So familiar this year for our kids. They got to play in the snow just like Peter. And here's Peter walking in the snow, making footprints. So encouraging kids to say, you do something similar. You did that this year, just like Peter did. You walked in the snow. We're the same in that way. So this is encouraging kids to be empathetic. A newer book, again, you can find it at Page Ahead. This is a book called Say Hello, and it's by Rachel Isidore. And this is about a little girl named Carmelita, and she has her dog on the front, and she and her mom are going to go and visit their grandmother. She's going to go and visit her grandma today. And the way they're going to get there is they're going to walk through their neighborhood. And as they walk through their neighborhood, they meet lots of different people. So a lot of kids have that experience of walking through their neighborhood. So as they walk through their neighborhood, people say hello. So again, you can say to kids, when you're walking, do people say hello to you? Of course, people in your neighborhood say hello. And the people in Carmelina's neighborhood say hello in many different ways. So someone says, buenos dias. Another person in her neighborhood says, shalom. All saying hello in ways that are comfortable to them, but they're all saying hello. Someone else says, bonjour. Someone says, konnichiwa. Someone says, ni hao. So, and when they get to the end of the walk, they get to her abuela, and her abuela says, hola. And then they can go and get ice cream. So here they are in the neighborhood getting ice cream again. So a way to show kids, oh, you do that. You walk through your neighborhood and people say hello, and people say hello in many different ways, but they're all saying hello. So that's say hello. So building empathy and then building understanding. So understanding differences is another part of what I'm looking for when I'm looking for books for kids. So understanding differences and understanding them without assigning value. So this is an old book. It's called The Bus for Us. And you can see it on the cover. Centered in the book is this boy. He's clearly a brown kid. So this is Gus, and he is the helper here as they all wait for the school bus. And this is Tess. She's new to the bus stop, and she needs help answering the question, is this the bus for us? So it's an opportunity to center brown kids without calling out their ethnicity or their race, and without that being the main theme of the story. So understanding differences without assigning value. Here they are. Gus is a big helper. So as they wait for the bus, lots of vehicles appear, none of which are the bus for us. And what I like about this book, all through the book, again, a variety of family backgrounds and kids all waiting for the bus stop. So here you see a little girl with a hijab, and then at the bottom of the page, because we talked about making sure that the story is engaging. So lots of things happening at the bottom of the page that you can call out to kids as you're reading the story. I think a pet escapes from a container and lunchboxes get turned over. Lots of things happening in the story. And here's Gus, still being patient, still helping. And then we get to, finally, they're getting closer to the number of kids that are waiting for the bus to show up. There you see kids using American Sign Language. Just a wonderful array of differences here. And then finally, here's the bus. So they all get to go on the bus with the help of Gus. So that's The Bus for Us, and it's Suzanne Bloom. And then a newer book. If you've watched any of the YouTube story time that Page Ahead has been doing, you will probably see this book in the background. It's called All Are Welcome. You can see this usually when someone is reading a story. This will be on the table. This is a book by Alexandra Penfold. And again, just looking at the cover, you see the multicultural families on the front and on the back, all the many ways that families are and families are together. And so this book is, again, probably pre-K through second grade. These kids their families are bringing them to school. There they are going to school, and I won't go through all the pages, but in the end, these are all the families, and they are having a wonderful know if you can see this big page, but a wonderful potluck at school. So lots of different cultures and lots of different families sharing without anyone assigning value to their differences. So once kids feel good about themselves, they're open to learning about other people, they're understanding differences without assigning value, they're looking around and they're starting to see that some things are not necessarily fair because these are my friends, and they're seeing that some things that are happening are not fair. So the next kind of that I'm looking for are books that mention fairness. And this is another old favorite. I keep saying old, but I'm pretty sure this is probably more than 10 years old. And this is Amazing Grace. This is the story of Grace. This is by Mary Hoffman. And Grace loves pretending. She does wonderful, it just gets costumes together at home, and she loves pretending. So at Grace's school, it turns out that they are going to do a play. Grace is so excited they're going to have a play at school, and the play is Peter Pan. So of course she raises her hand because she wants to be part of the play. She wants to play the part of Peter Pan. So what happens is that one of her classmates says, well, you can't be Peter because, first of all, you're a girl. And then another kid says, well, you can't be Peter because you're Black. So this is a story of how kids understand fairness, and then what happens in the end. I won't tell you. I'll encourage you to get the book and read it if you haven't already read it. Amazing Grace. And this is a newer book on the same topic of fairness. So this book, I love the colors on this book. This is called The Proudest Blue. And you can see on the cover is a girl wearing hijab. And then down here is a little girl in a boat, and this is her sister. So this is the story about this older girl who wears hijab to school for the first time, and how her sister is so proud and watching everything that is happening to her older sister and paying attention to what kids say at school and how her sister, her big sister, handles what children say about her hijab. So again, I won't read very much of the book, but this is a story about understanding fairness. And here they are at the end going home. So there they are getting on their school bus. Lots of things happen in that story. So I'll go through it again. Once you feel good about yourself, once kids feel good about who they are, they can be open to other people. They can be open to learning about other people. They can begin to understand differences, and they can understand those differences without assigning any value. And they start to look around and talk about what might be fair. And I tell you, I don't know any 4-year-olds that don't know how to raise their hand and say, that's not fair. Everybody by the age of 4 that I know can say, that's not fair. Kids know and understand fairness. They're very good at recognizing when something is not fair. So after fairness, the next category that I look for are books that support kids, that promote kids taking action. So when you find something that's not fair, you want to help kids be able to take action to make change on behalf of themselves or on behalf of other people. I have to keep saying Page Ahead is wonderful. I think we're all doing shout outs to Page Ahead because I didn't see this book until I came to Page Ahead. And this is a wonderful book. It's called Change Sings, and it's by Amanda Gorman. And she was the poet for the presidential inauguration. And so she's written a poem and made it into a children's book called Change Sings. And in this book, children are taking action on behalf of themselves and other people. So here is and it's wonderfully illustrated. Here is a picture of two kids agreeing to make change. And so they begin by helping to clean up their neighborhood. You see them picking up things in their neighborhood. And then all throughout the book, that's their behavior. So they enlist other kids to do the same thing. And then this is toward the end of the book. Here they are, many different kinds of kids. And she says, I am just what the world needs. So saying to kids, you are just what the world needs. You are what the world needs to make change. So this is one of my favorites. And thanks to Page Ahead, I got to see it. I actually, Lisa, have gone out and bought my own copy now so that I have it at home. And then the last book that I want to share with you is Sophia Valdez, Future Prez. So again, this is a story about a little girl who decides that what's going on is not right. And the story is that Sophia and her grandpa, he walks to school with Sophia every day. And one of the days, her grandpa trips on a pile of trash and is injured. And Sophia says that is not right. That's not right for that pile of trash to be there and for my grandpa to get injured. So what she does is she decides, you can see this sign, it says, we're going to make a park. Let's get rid of that trash mountain and let's build a new park. But she recognizes that she can't do that on her own. And so the story takes her to City Hall and it takes her to lots of people to ask questions about what should be in the park. And then in the end, all of the neighbors and the children from the second grade classroom that she's a part of. So Sophia Valdez, they say, is probably going to be a future Prez because she was able to organize people to take action on behalf of others. So this is a wonderful story, and it's one of a series, but this one is one of my favorites. I want to also share with you, I think Lisa has a resource list. So there were books that I didn't have time to share with you, and there are many, many books out there if you want to spend time finding some really good diverse books. And there's a resource list of places to search books. And then lastly, I want to leave you with a quote that kind of sums up what I've been talking about. And that is, in a nutshell, just keep in mind the power of books. The power of books to nurture or to undermine a child's sense of self, positive attitude toward others, and motivation to act for fairness. That's as much as I can share with you today. Thank you for being here, and I hope you take the opportunity to just explore some wonderful, diverse books for your families. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Oh, actually, it's not really a question. I just wanted to compliment you on your presentation. That was really excellent. I was madly taking notes on the books. I just feel like those topics are really, I just don't feel like they're addressed enough. And I just really appreciate hearing what you had to say, the things you consider in choosing books, and also the list of books that you provided. And my partner and I are sitting on the couch, and he's just looking at me going, wow, she's really good. That was quite impressive.
Well, it's fun for me, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And the resources that Lisa has on that list are wonderful places to find books, and then also to give you just information about issues on diversity with children. Mhm.
And Charlotte, you someone mentioned I guess it was Susan, when she introduced you, she said that you had worked in Tukwila. So I was curious what school, because that's my old district. So I was just curious, what school have you connected with in Tukwila?
Oh, it was my first assignment, and I'm not there now. Oh gosh, what's the name of the school? Thorndike, I think.
Yeah, that's the school I used to work. So
Oh yeah. I was there for 1 year, and then I went to the Highline School District.
nice. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I do want to thank all of our presenters this afternoon. Thank you, Charlotte, and thank you, Linda, and thank you, Patty, for sharing your experiences and wisdom and your wonderful book list. I think it sounds like a lot of people enjoyed it as much. And now this is the third time that we've done this because we've been rehearsing it. So I have to say, I think I enjoy it more and more when I'm working with you guys and listening to this. So I'm so glad that the rest of you got to tune in and enjoy. And for those of you who were not able to join us today and are listening later, I hope that you got a lot out of it. And as I mentioned when we started, Lisa will be following up with a recording link and a link to the resources that were on the PowerPoint today. So I guess I will sign off and just say, go out and read a good book. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.